took the win. It was a great performance by Colin Brown. George Kurtz stepping off the podium with a Mercedes.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin Boehm, driver of the number 9 CrowdStrike Honda Civic Si. This week's been really killer so far. We've been fastest in both practice sessions yesterday. We qualified on pole today, and we just finished our first race where we led every lap and won the race. So far it's been it's just the most killer weekend that you can have. We still have 2 more races, one tomorrow and then one Sunday. So I still have a lot of work to do to try to close out this perfect weekend.
In the capital city of the Lone Star State, outside a sprawling metropolis, sits a racetrack as shiny and new as any downtown skyscraper. This is Circuit of the Americas, a state-of-the-art motorsports and entertainment venue built in 2012 to host the U.S. Formula One Grand Prix. This September, it'll host GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, for the second time this season. The autumn-tinted hills of Watkins Glen will have to wait till next year for the rumble and roar of GT3 racing. You're watching CrowdStrike Racing's coverage of GT World Challenge America from COTA. CrowdStrike runs on the AWS cloud, while AWS uses CrowdStrike to secure its servers. CrowdStrike is an AWS premier partner and extends its suite of security offerings to all AWS's customers, in turn making AWS the most secure cloud in the world. For 13 years, AWS has been the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform, offering over 175 fully featured cloud computing services. Last year, the firm entered into a new collaboration that saw AWS become the official cloud and machine learning provider for SRO America, as well as series partner of Pirelli GT4 America and TC America. Effective cybersecurity means you see and stop threats like hackers as fast as possible. That's why every second counts. Hello everyone, my name is Kyle Heyer. I'm joined by another guy that knows that every second counts. That would be CJ Moses, Deputy Chief Information Security Officer at Amazon Web Services and a race car driver. He drives the number 04 CrowdStrike AWS HPD Civic Type R TCR in the TC Series. 2 races so far this weekend. CJ, welcome back for the 3rd time here on CrowdStrike Racing's coverage this season. Circuit of the Americas, a beautiful racetrack that everybody knows and loves. Built in 2012, it's a brand new place. It still feels and looks like it. How has your experience been so far out on track?
It's been excellent. We've had 2 races already in the touring car side of the house, and the races have been full of drama and fun, and today is literally just off the track. The last race that ran, I came off the track, ended up in P7 myself, but had a very strong race at the beginning, on pace and with the pack. Got into some of the rubber out there and picked up some of that on my tires and got a little squirrely out there. But overall, the course is an amazing course. It has a lot of long straightaways and a lot of twisty bits as well. Big thing here at Circuit of the Americas is track limits. Essentially what it comes down to is there's a lot of pavement out there, And there are lines on the pavement, and there are little bollards and things like that in order to try to keep you on the track. And there's a lot of places where you can exceed the track limit, so we'll be talking about that a lot more today.
Yeah, I think so. And this is a really beautiful racetrack because we've got the starting grid rolling across the bottom of your screen. It's an FAA Grade 1 circuit constructed in 2012. It has an observation tower in the arena section, 251 feet or 77 meters high, 419 stairs from the bottom to the top. Every year it hosts the annual Formula One U.S. Grand Prix. The grade into turn number 1, we'll see that in a couple minutes. That's 11% up to the top. That's a pretty steep hill. And the back straightaway, a kilometer long. And then this racetrack is special to CrowdStrike specifically and AWS because it's the only GT World Challenge Americas powered by AWS venue that also hosts Formula One. CrowdStrike's a sponsor of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team with 6 consecutive Constructors' Championships, and AWS is a sponsor of Formula One, providing data and insights for the series, just like they do here in World Challenge. So this is a really special racetrack for a lot of reasons, CJ, but this racetrack has this aura. When you come in here, it feels important. It's so well sculpted and so well designed, and it's very safe with all the runoffs and everything. This is a world-class facility, and it's a pleasure to be out here this weekend and with you guys, watching you guys race in TC earlier today.
No, absolutely. This course is one of the destination race courses for any real racer. You have to come and race at COTA, Circuit of the Americas. Not only the long straightaways, but the sweeping turns. Just the iconic venue itself, especially given that, Formula One, the pinnacle of motorsports, comes here. And actually, we could say this year that since they were unable to make it, given COVID and all the issues there, we're here representing for them.
And you'll notice in the field today there is no 04 CrowdStrike Mercedes. The number 04 Mercedes-AMG GT3 has been withdrawn from rounds 11 and 12 at COTA due to an unforeseen family emergency. DXDT Racing and CrowdStrike Racing will still fully support the rest of the COTA weekend and plan to be back in full force at Indianapolis October 2nd through 4th. However, we still have the number 63 with David Askew and Ryan DL, the DXDT Racing teammates. So we still got a car in the field here, CJ. Going to be rooting for them this afternoon. But this is, again, a really big racetrack, 3.5 miles long, 133 feet of elevation change. And you mentioned track limits. That's going to be a discussion all day long.
Yeah.
And maybe not in the places where you'd expect it. We talk about track limits all the time. But even in the S's and towards the end of them, really 8, 9, and 10, a lot of people getting real creative over there.
Well, that's I think you find it in all the classes that the S's become as close to a straightaway as you can possibly make them, and that means sometimes that rather than going to the right or left of the little bollards that are there, sometimes you kind of go straight over them. It's not what they want you to do, but sometimes it's what you end up doing. So we'll see how the GT classes actually deal with that here today. The other thing that we're coming around here, I think they got 2 pace laps here today. So. Yeah, one of the other things that you have here is with, we were talking about the 63 car, is that, although without the 04 car here, obviously some of our normal drama won't be there, but with the 63 car, DXDT is still in the in the running for the championship for the team itself. So we'll be rooting for the team car of 63 with David Askew and Ryan Dial in it. Pushing for our team DXDT, that is part of the CrowdStrike Racing family, to be able to go out there and, bring home the win.
And this afternoon, as in the past, we're going to have P1 Software to analyze this race throughout the day. We want to thank P1 Software for giving our viewers this in-depth look at real-time data and analytics, and we'll show you kind of a preview of what we got. We got a timing screen available. We'll have a track map, and we'll be able to analyze individual gaps between other cars and the number 63 with Razzle Dazzle and David Askew in it. So we'll keep an eye on that all afternoon. And again, we appreciate P1 Software for giving our viewers this in-depth look at the behind-the-scenes data, which you're very familiar with. There's also a new segment in here that we'll see later today with some speed trap information, and I'm sure when we see that on screen, we can talk more about that and tell everybody what that's all about.
Absolutely.
So again, we have 2 different classifications of race cars here this afternoon. We've got our GT3 spec cars. We've also got the GT Sports Club category vehicles, and those are basically 2 races happening on the same racetrack at the same time, CJ. So we'll have, basically at the end of the day, we'll have actually more than 2 winners. It gets more complicated than just that. But again, Basics GT3 will be at the front, and kind of bringing up the rear, we've got a handful of GT Sports Club cars.
Yeah, and within the GT Sports Club cars, normally you're actually going to have GT2 cars, which just from the standpoint will be faster in the straightaways because they have more horsepower. but they have less aerodynamics, so therefore they have less wing, if you will, so they won't be as fast in the twisty bits. In overall lap time, you'll actually see that the GT3 cars will come out on top just because there is quite a few twisty bits here, as well as the long straightaway, so GT2 cars will be fun. But in the end, the other thing is the GT Sports Club cars are only running for 40 minutes, where the rest of the field is going to be running for 90 with drivers changes just after the end of the GT Sports Club race. So it is going to be a lot of action. We have a good field of cars. And they're working their way around here, not too far from bringing it up to the front stretch for a start.
We're working our way through what I call the stadium section around here, and a couple changes in driver lineups this week as well. The Wright Motorsports Porsche is actually a Pro-Am car this week with Fred Portet and Jan Halen in that car, so that's a new pairing here this weekend. Ziad Gondor is now in the Racer's Edge Motorsports Acura NSX GT3 alongside Kyle Marcelli. First time we've seen that second Racer's Edge Motorsports car in a little while, and I think that is the notable ones. Oh, Alec Udell in the Windward Racing car joining Russell Ward in the number 33. So Pro-Am class is going to be pretty stacked. It'll be a fun race to watch this afternoon.
Absolutely.
Field racked up and stacked up here as they work their way through 16, 17, and 18. That's the carousel. Then turn 19, they'll go right by our little broadcast compound, right out the window this time, and head into turn number 20, and we'll turn them loose for 90 minutes here, 40 minutes for the GT Sports Club cars, but there are the handful of machines on the front. Acura NSX versus Ferrari 488 up the hill, 133 feet from the bottom to the top as they race here at Circuit of the Americas. GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, from Circuit of the Americas for the second time this season, and it's a long way down to the front of the green flag here because we actually take the green at the further start-finish line. And we'll wait, and now the impatience, there goes, as they take off. Green flag flies, and we're racing at COTA as they head up the hill, 90 minutes on the clock. And the number 1 car, the Ferrari, is the first one out front. Look at the 63 up the inside. That's 3 wide for a moment. With the 80 Racer's Edge car, they touch, and around goes the Wright Motorsports car.
Oh, right in the front of Jason Bell's GT2 car. So you have a GT3 Pro-Am car with a GT2. Obviously Jason had nowhere to go. Looked like... that's what happens in turn 1. You stack them up and you get close together, and sometimes you spin them out.
The racetrack here actually opens up on corner entry to about twice the width that it is everywhere else, and it kind of encourages you to dive down in or arc the corner in, and that all converges down to the same apex there, CJ, so it's real easy to have that happen.
It's quite a funnel, and that's what we always talk about. Everybody fans out, and then you run down the funnel, and that's what happens when you try to put 4 cars into space that only holds 2.
So with a frantic start, it's going to kind of mix up the field just a little bit and get some of the GT Sports Club cars scattered about. There's the number 63 DXTT Racing car. A little bit of damage on the left front from contact there. But again, DXTT Racing's been really, really good at getting these cars fixed up, especially after the spill at Road America a few weeks ago. So I don't think this will be a huge deal.
No, it doesn't look like it. The only thing you have to worry about, really, the biggest thing there is either splitter or tire damage. And if it's if the tire stays up, at least till driver change, that'll be good, and it doesn't look to have too much splitter damage there.
So now they're going to work their way through the stadium section for the first time. Cold tires here. CJ got to warm those tires up and get them up to operating temperature. We saw that play a factor in the TC race earlier with one of the TCR cars, the leader, actually going for a loop in the S's with that rear end swinging around just a bit. There's James Safronis now in one of the GT Sports Club cars. This, I believe, is his first time running this class.
So running Sports Club it is. Normally James, his team GMG, is actually one of the biggest supporters of GT Sports Club because they bring out a lot of the GT2 cars, and on occasion, like what he has here, is a GT3 Audi R8 Ultra, which is an older generation of the GT3 car. Therefore, it runs in Sports Club rather than in the main GT3 classification. So you do have kind of that mixing. James has run with us before. James was running in the actual Pro-Am in Porsche. But today he's out here in Sports Club along with Jason Bell, being his teammate.
So with a couple minutes on the clock now, we've got that number 93 Acura NSX chasing the race leader in the 488 right now. And I believe the driver that is in this, we're starting with our, I guess you could call it the AM category drivers for the Pro-Am class. So that would be correct. So Fuentes out front right now in the Ferrari. Shelby Blackstock in the silver categorized number 93. Alec Udell in the 33. That's also a silver class car here this week. And he's in that silver Mercedes chasing the red and black Acura as they head down the hill. There's that Wright Motorsports number 20 coming in, maybe just get some new tires on that car. Got it hit pretty hard in the left rear, I think, but I don't see any visible damage.
Yeah, it doesn't look too. I think they just might have had a tire down or an issue with the tire, given that contact. But we'll see if they can get back up to full pace. I don't doubt it. The car is very fast, and as long as there's no damage, get the right tires on there, they'll be off and running. But given that they've already made their a pit stop long before they need to do their driver's change, it's going to be a difficult race for them to rebound from. But it's a long race, so there's plenty of things that can play out from here.
I see COTA as being a very rhythmic racetrack. I feel like if you get into the groove here, you're unstoppable. It's just difficult to do. This racetrack is very challenging. The entire first sector has a lot of different elements from different racetracks around the world. Maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone is sort of semi-modeled here at COTA with the S's section with a lot more elevation change. There are some corners that are inspired by some tracks elsewhere in Europe. So there's a lot of different elements that were kind of stitched together to create this racetrack. It is not easy, and there's very different sections depending on what sector you're in, as we see a battle for second here.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many turns on this track and so many different ways to attack each of those. You see here coming out on the front straightaway, you actually have Alec Udell going with Shelby Blackstock there, and they're racing for the lead of their particular class, the silver silver classification. It's there's a lot of elevation change, especially going up the front straightaway.
And they're chasing each other down the hill through turn 2. It's a rise up into turn 1, a blind apex, and then you're basically dropping off a cliff down turn 2 and then into the S's. This is the rhythm section I was talking about earlier, modeled after Silverstone's Maggots and Beckett section. And this is a challenging one to get right, because if you mess up one corner, CJ, it just follows you all the way through.
It follows you all the way through, and you lose time all the way through, all the way up to turn 7, 8, 9. That's the section they're going through right here. 9 is the apex. This is, the whole track becomes very much a rhythm, and the gotcha is that as you run longer, the track actually eats your tires. This is one of those circuits that doesn't have a lot of grip. It's been repaved, but even with that repaving, it doesn't have a lot of grip, so it wears your tires out very quickly. And then those track limits that we talk about start to come into play, where you may not want to be going really wide on exit, but you end up, well beyond the white lines that you have painted on the end of the track. But I think from what I've seen so far, they're being very respectful as much as they can be of a lot of the different things.
And here is a look at Race Vision powered by AWS. This is a new technology that we're using with the AWS cloud. Shelby Blackstock, trap speed of 161.6 at the end of the back straightaway heading into turn number 12. So tell me a little bit about what goes into capturing this information and displaying it here on screen.
You'd think it would be rather easy, but what we found when putting this together and being able to get the data and getting it into the live stream like this is that there's a lot of pieces and parts that need to all work together, not only getting the data, but then aligning it with each of the different cars and then presenting it in a way that all of us can enjoy. And this is the beginning of many of these types of things that you'll see that'll be, Race Vision powered by AWS. Great work as a partnership amongst all of those various partners, including obviously SRO and AWS as part of that. And it's great to see, because it's been something that we've been working on all the way since the beginning of our partnership at the end of last year.
So it looks like Fuentes is beginning to pull a slight gap there on second and third as they continue to scrap for position. We'll take, actually, here's a battle going on back here a little bit. That is two of the GT Sports Club drivers as they head off into turn number 1. And that is the 31, that's Issa, right in front of, I believe that is Gates?
It's going to be Ryan Gates, yeah.
Yeah, and the Porsche GT2 as they head down the hill. So Mark Issa in that TR3 Racing Ferrari 488. That is a GT3 spec car running in the Sports Club category.
Yeah, there's that's one of the things in Sports Club. You actually you have GT2 cars, like I said, you have GT3 cars. Normally older classification of GT3, doesn't necessarily have to be, but and they have the balance of performance that they try to balance these cars out to be able to run in the class. Given that it's a sprint style race rather than having multiple drivers and refueling, it's a 40-minute go out there and go as fast as you can. Put all those lap times together, however your car does it. Whether it's on the straightaways or the turns, and whoever passes the checker flag first wins.
Well, it's really interesting because this is a racetrack that has so much straightaway as well as some tight and twisty sections. And you'd think that GT3 and GT2 cars would kind of work their way and sift out with the GT3s up front, the GT2s out the rear. Here's a look at the replay here of turn number 1. 63 dives to the inside here, David Askew. And he's fully alongside there of the 80, but I think there just was too many cars and too small.
Well, I think what I saw there is actually he got pushed inside by Alec Udell's car. Traditionally, you don't want to go inside on that because actually you have, if you notice the white blend line coming out from the pit lane, you normally don't want to be in that, but it was one of those things that David was there and Alec came across. I don't think he did it on purpose and ran out of space, so David had to avoid, got inside. But when you come up to that turn that deep inside, now you have to do an 180-degree turn all at once, and that doesn't necessarily work out so good. So here you have David, rebounding from being so far back. Now he's fighting with traffic that normally he wouldn't be back there with. So he's got a lot of work cut out for him until he hands the car off to Ryan Dale a little bit later.
And you'll notice one of those Audi GT2 cars just up the road, and I was going to point out on P1TS here, this is a great opportunity to show you, look at all the different classifications. Every color is a different class car. And the challenge is when you have a start like that where there's a spin, it kind of makes everything, it's like you put cars in a blender and blend it all up. Everyone's everywhere. And that creates a problem because some of these cars have different strengths and weaknesses. The GT2 cars, again, a lot faster on the straights, a lot slower on the corners. So this is going to create a very challenging environment for this first stint as we see Askew all over the place trying to get by that number 80 currently driven by Gondor.
Yeah, at least in this case, these two cars are actually within class. They got shaken up and ultimately ended up in the, further back than they normally are used to, but looks like David's, doing a good job working on Gandor here to try to make his way back forward. Once again, obviously a good bit of traffic still in front of them, but have to remember at the 40-minute mark, a good portion of that traffic, anything that's a GT Sports Club cars, they're going to be pulling off the track, and then that's going to clear up for David to hand the car off to Ryan DL with a lot fewer cars on track. And Razzle Dazzle knows how to wheel that car pretty fast, so. Still really good chance with the amount of time that we have left that we'll see a good race for the finish.
For a lot of these drivers, including yourself, this is the second time we've been to this racetrack this season. So what did you take away from your races here earlier this year that you've applied this weekend?
Just about everything, because I'd been here once before, but only in testing. Earlier this year, came here and actually raced and learned how to actually race the track. There's one thing to be able to go out there and do one fast lap in qualifying and then, be out there. But as you're driving for up to 40 minutes in our case, you're actually out there wearing the tires off. You need to be able to be fast at the end of the race, not only at the beginning. So you need to be able to save the tires. So being able to be fast for multiple laps and continue that without wearing the tires out is very important. In their case, they're going to run for, the GT Sports Club cars are going to run their tires right out by the 40-minute mark. The other cars that are going to be out there for 90 minutes at the 45 or thereabouts minute mark when they change drivers, they'll be able to put new tires on. And when they put the new tires on, they will be coming out of a heater box and they'll be warmed up for them, so they'll go out there on warm tires ready to go.
Here's another Race Vision powered by AWS, this time the fastest speed in the S's, and it looks like Fuentes with a 115.6 miles an hour. That's awful fast through a pretty tight section. I got out there on Friday night. It's a lot tighter than it looks on TV, let me tell you.
Yeah, TV doesn't do this track justice at all as far as what you're actually feeling when you're out there. There is a lot of elevation. It's actually getting bumpy again, unfortunately. I know they repaved the track to get rid of the bumps. They're coming back, so you're bouncing around quite a bit. And these turns are pretty tight. I mean, there's a few of them, we're down to second gear and digging out of. These cars, the Ferrari especially, seems to be very fast in the straightaway and in the turns. That's a combination that will prove to be very competitive here at COTA.
And here's, again, that battle going on between Gandor and Askew as they round turn number 11. That's the hairpin at the far end of the circuit. We're going to head down the long back straightaway, 1 kilometer, just over half a mile to the other end down in turn 12. And heavy braking zones here. Cars with ABS, cars without ABS. Obviously, all these cars will have ABS, but you're leaning on that brake pedal into the braking zones here.
Absolutely. In our TCR cars, we're braking just before the 100 marker. At 100 and just shy of 150 miles an hour, give or take. I think I was on the fastest speed board at the top of it, believe it or not, at 148 miles an hour and change earlier today. And it's all about getting yourself woed down and dive yourself into the turn and there's a little dip in there, and you use that little dip. These are the types of tricks at this track
well,
that you have.
it's an interesting development. A
Here's
newcomer
Ryan.
to the team, at least for the weekend. Stefan Pfeiffer is on top of the pit box. He most recently was working with the Patos Racing team in Pirelli GT4 America. Before that, with Effort Racing and with Starworks. And the connection between all three is David's co-driver, Ryan Dial, who went to his old friend and colleague and asked, hey, can you come and help us out this weekend? We need a little bit of assistance on top of the pit box. So Stefan, who's a longtime engineer, really knows his stuff. He's come in. He's been learning on the fly. This team tested as recently as last week at Indianapolis. Stefan was not a part of that, however, but he has been getting up to speed throughout the weekend, and he's been a good asset for this team throughout this whole process here so far at COTA.
Thanks, Ryan. And speaking of testing in Indianapolis, you did that. We got a race there in October, 2nd through 4th. You tested at Indy. I've never been to Indianapolis. It'll be my first time going. What was that like out there?
It was great. We had 2 days testing out there with the David Murray track days. We were able to go out, and there was only, I think, 9 cars that were there. A handful of us in TCR, so 3 TCR cars from DXDT, and then 1 GT4 car, and the rest were GT3 cars all out there, practicing away. It has a long straightaway similar to COTA, where you almost think you can read a book because you're literally getting as far as you're getting into 6th gear and on it for a while. But once again, you get down to the end of that front straightaway in a very tight right-hand turn, and you have a lot of twisty bits. But then you're up onto the banking and coming back around before you knew it. It's an amazing track. Going down the front straightaway in between the stands, and it just keeps going and going, and then you have the pagoda off to your right. That's a truly iconic venue. Been there for over 100 years, and is really one of the places where everyone that's racing there or going to race there is really looking forward to it. That's why you saw on the test day, a good turnout and a lot of people that are trying to do really well. Not to mention, it's the grand finale. It's the final races for any of the championships, points or otherwise, that we have going on. And then the 8-hour race, not to mention, we'll be there, and we'll have this nice undercard series that'll be there, support series for the first time ever. You might have heard of them, IndyCar.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that series before.
It's an amazing, this is a strange year that we're in that, for the first time, say ever, IndyCar will be a support series to our SRO races here in the United States, because we had the track, and obviously they were looking for a venue, and we thought it'd be a good idea. The SRO thought it'd be a good idea, work with Indy and put us all together out there. So I think it's going to be a great weekend. We have a lot of fun things planned on top of battling towards the championship all the way through to the last race.
Well, Indianapolis, again, you kind of briefly mentioned it. We've got an 8-hour endurance race going on there. That'll be Sunday, October 4th. But we also have a standard 90-minute GT World Challenge America race in that race as well. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic, is we've got kind of 2 races that are sort of part of each other. And we're also going to have GT Sports Club racing in that as well. So
Yes.
it's going to be very busy, a lot of checkered flags falling in place.
Absolutely. For those teams that are running for the GT3 for the 90-minute versus, those teams that are entered only for the 8-hour or towards the 8-hour, you're going to have some different strategies being played out, because just think of it. If you're running for the 90-minute, you actually have different driver, requirements. As far as you have to have a driver in the car for 45 minutes and then trade out and do all of these things to be competitive and ultimately get your points for that. But if you're running for the overall 8-hour, maybe you're able to keep somebody in the car longer because you're carrying more fuel, and so there's a lot of strategy to be played there. And I think some of the things that we'll see potentially between the 63 and 04 car, based upon what the points look at that point, as to what those strategies are.
Well, let me tell you about the 63 car right now. He's having a great battle with the number 80. Down in turn number 9, I believe that's the right-hander heading up the hill. Yep. We saw the Acura dragging the right side tires in the grass, and that's amazing to be, because you talk about track limits. That's a corner where they haven't really been officiating that super tightly, so you just use all that pavement.
Yeah, so you come up 7, or you cut across 7, you come up, you drop your right side tires as far into the inside of that red as you can. And traditionally, they're not worried about that one. That's turn 8, really, I believe. And then you cut to the left, and turn 9 is right there off to the left, and you're coming up and over. There is a little bollard that's there, or sleeping policeman, whatever you want to call it. And traditionally, they want you to stay to the right of that. But what actually happens is that that gets run over enough, it turns black and you can't even tell where it is, so you actually line the car up and go over the entire thing. So you're getting grass on one side and you're almost getting grass on the other. The way I look at it is we paid for all the concrete. We should use every bit of it.
I'm one of those people as well. Look at that pass on the outside of turn number 1 for David Askew. Squeezes up the inside of the number 80 of Ziad Gondor and goes through. That was an amazing pass. That, again, will be for 6th place overall as they head through the S's now. And Gondor being super aggressive over the curbing, trying to grab some of that time back. But that was an impressive place to do it.
Yeah, you can see as the tires start to go on these cars a little bit more, you can see Gondor just cut the inside of that one completely. You'll start to see where they're not as respectful of the curbing, and they'll actually go straight over them. And a lot of that is just pure speed, that you don't have the grip anymore to be able to make it inside, and you just kind of float over it. It's not necessarily trying to take advantage of track limits, but in this case, it's just kind of necessary in order to maintain the speed.
Well, and the reason why the 63 was pushing so hard to get by, here's a look at our P1TS software, and thanks again for them for providing this amazing insight. That white line is that other car, the Gondor's car, the number 80, and the blue line is the number 63 DXTT Racing car. You can see how the
convergence that you see
convergence.
there, yeah.
I'm looking for the car number. Gondor was racing in the 1 car earlier this year, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And he switched cars.
Off.
So my mind's still thinking that he's in that car. In the number 80, you can see how they had converged, and the 63 has sort of gotten stuck behind him. So he finally got around it, and in a lap or two, we'll see this line basically switch positions, showing us that finally that pass was completed.
Yeah, that's frustrating. You'd think that it's really easy to pass on this course, but a lot of the places that you can pass or normally would pass really have to do with late braking or being able to get a better launch out of a corner and getting inside and moving around, very much like David did there from into turn 2, really. Heading down into the S's. Here we have James Sifranis that's out there running. It looks like he's running pretty strong, as you would expect. James is a very good driver.
It's a slick-looking race car, too.
He's got an amazing-looking race car, and dare I say that I actually own a GT2 race car. It has a very similar livery on it, so I liked his, and when we went to wrap the new Audi GT2 race car that I have, we did it very similar. A little less orange. He's got a lot of orange to make sure that they know he's coming. I don't want people to know I'm back there that much.
Yeah, and he continues to run 4th overall right now, which is a super impressive climb. Wanted to mention 2 other drivers right now. In 2nd and 3rd overall, Shelby Blackstock and Alec Udell. Both those drivers competed in Assetto Corsa Competiciones and GT World Challenge America's GT Rivals competition earlier this year, so some esports as well. And it seems very interesting to me, but both those drivers found some moderate success in that series, and here they are running up at the front in a real race.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, both of those drivers are, consummate pros. They both really know what they're doing. They put all the work in and have raced in many series. Alec Udell actually our only winner of the European GT4 Championship last year. So you actually have a U.S., an American that went over to Europe and actually won a championship over in Europe, which is very competitive. So Alec Udell, I dare say a rising star. He's been, he's on the younger side, and he continues to rise, I should say. And same thing with Shelby Blackstock has actually, continued to get better, both driving here, and Shelby also drives TCR in another series. So lots of really strong competition, especially, even in the esports side of the things. I think I said before that, those of us that are a bit older weren't as quick to take to the esports racing, even if we've used sims before. And I think that both of these guys really did a great job for especially in the circumstances that we have. Here we
got another Race Vision powered by AWS, fastest speed on the straightaway, and it's like Ziad Gondor, 160.3 miles an hour, tied with Fuentes now.
And then the next 2 are tied, so you could see how closely matched these cars are. And, your fastest speed on the straight, and then subsequently you have a braking zone right after that. So those are pretty close to peak speeds.
I'd say that SR America has the BOP nailed. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Well, that's the thing is that you get the cars really close there, and then, obviously you have to balance based upon other things throughout the rest of the course. Top speed is one thing, but then also trying to get the cars to handle equally or as equally as you can, ultimately resulting in the same or similar lap times, I should say.
I also find this racetrack absolutely beautiful because of all the paint around the racetrack. I mean, if you've got to have paved runoff, you might as well make it look pretty.
Yeah.
And they painted all the corners here at COTA, and it's absolutely gorgeous. The Texas flag there. If you would like to paint some corners, if you haven't entered the CrowdStrike Racing Coloring Book Contest, you definitely should. You can download a copy of the coloring book for yourself at CrowdStrikeRacing.com. Tag your best entries on social media by the Indianapolis Race Weekend, October 2nd through 4th. The winner will get a cool CrowdStrike Racing swag bag. And let me tell you, they got some cool stuff. So definitely enter that at CrowdStrikeRacing.com, the coloring book contest. So how'd you like that transition there, Steve?
That was excellent. Matter of fact, you were right on. I didn't even know where you're going, and boom,
I didn't
right
know where
on
I was
it.
going either. Sometimes you just got to roll
you
with
did great. In talking about the swag, CrowdStrike Racing, we definitely have some of the best swag out there, and lots of it thanks to Bob and the team. You know, Bob and Danielle make sure that we have the right swag to make sure we look proper. You know, here at the racetrack, as well as you know, when we're supporting other events that we have.
Yeah, it certainly looks awesome. And the race cars look awesome as well. The liveries on the cars are just so good. Kevin's and your paint schemes are just so amazing to look at. And also, we're going to talk to Kevin Boehm tomorrow, but he's had a super successful weekend and has taken the championship lead in TCA.
He's on a tear, and it's not that it's surprising, actually, when you know, we were looking at Kevin to join the team. That was one of the things that we knew that he would ultimately be strong, just given a little time. We see the fastest corner speed at the S's thing here. You actually see that Fuentes is flying into the S's. Poor Ed going pretty good as well. Looks like we have two here that actually are down on mile per hour, if you will. I have a feeling that they probably had a reason why they were going slower there, because I know in TCR we're actually entering or, you know, going through the S's a little bit faster than that. So I have a feeling this is one of those things that there was something happened that slowed them down.
They
shouldn't
might have
be
been
that far
side by
off.
side, actually.
It could have been very well. That is possible.
Yeah.
Because you're entering the S's, you know, in a TCR car. We're entering the S's, you know, probably 110, fourth gear, kind of maxed out 110, 120 miles an hour, depending on how confident you are and what kind of tires you have. So I'm sure that as they're cruising through the S's, they got a little bit. And here it is.
Yeah, I think this
Here's exactly what you're talking
probably
about.
exactly what we were talking about. And there's the battle up the hill again. And this is just recently. They had made that swipe before. Is this the pass again? This might be. This is actually a replay of. No, it's not. This is or maybe it is.
Whoa.
This is the pass from a couple laps ago, and I think that's where they got the corner speed from.
Yep, probably.
That was such an impressive pass by David Askew, and he continues to hold on to the spot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's the. You know, he obviously had better pace to begin with, and the up and around, out and around move, that's not normally all that, you know, I should say that it's not normally all that successful. It's a known move here, but he made it not only stick, but he actually put a nice little gap on that.
And you can see right there the white line is that number 80 car, and it was in front of the blue line. Now it's behind it. That tells us that they made a pass for position. So thanks again to P1TS Software. So we head back into the race almost 30 minutes into this one. And let me tell you, up at the front, they have not really separated out all that much. Fuentes continues to lead, but it's only by about a second and a half, a second and three quarters. Then it's Blackstock and Udell kind of right on top of each other. Then Safronis, Daskalos, and Askew, the rest of the top six in overall position right now. So still pretty tight up at the top of the order here.
Yeah, you can see James there out there leading not only GT Sports Club, but he's obviously trying to make a point with this little bit older GT3 car. Goes out there and is laying down really fast laps. Really representing for GMG. Unfortunately, it looks like Jason Bell's car got damaged on that little argy-bargy situation we had in the beginning, and we've gone ahead and it looks like he's likely retired the car. So James is out there representing for GMG, even though he is running in the GT3 portion of Sports Club, but he's out there doing a driver's clinic for the rest of his competitors there.
Yeah, it looks like the two car still is out on track over in turn 19
Okay.
right now. And actually, it will show you, again, we're using P1TS, so you can see on screen right now in the bottom left hand of that graphic, you can see the green number 2. That is the vehicle that has Jason Bell's team car in it. So this is another good opportunity to show you the spread between the front three drivers as they head into the what we call the stadium section here at Circuit of the Americas, and we'll even zoom in and show you a little closer up if we can as they head on through the turn 15 right now. This is one one of the trickiest corners on the racetrack for me in the sim. It seems like every time you track out, the car just wants to push so wide, and it's so hard to keep it on track there.
So 13, the key there is actually don't let it float out too much. You charge in come off of 12, full throttle, charge in as if you're going to go straight and keep on moving. Feather off the throttle, let the car rotate, go back flat as soon as you actually get the car pointed, so that you're going basically double apexing that turn. And once you're able to get it to turn the second time, you mash the throttle, you get going, you grab fourth gear, you keep on going flat all the way up until you're launched out of there. And it seems to work out pretty well, at least in a TCR car. I haven't driven a GT3 car here, so I'm not exactly sure how that works for them.
Well, got to tell you, Gondor is right back on David Askew, at least through the stadium section. It seems like that Acura looked a little bit quicker through that section, but it looks like Askew picks up pretty much everywhere else. There's that 311 car, and that car is one of the GT Sports Club drivers, and that's Ryan Gates from the 311 RS Motorsport team. And right now, he is 8th overall as he works his way into the carousel. This is a high-speed section. You talked about the pavement earlier getting a little bit bumpier. Some tracks like Sebring are known for their bumps, and it's a characterization that they've gotten over time. But this track, it sinks, and it seems like every time they repave it, it sinks in a different place, and it's kind of, it builds this character year to year, and they've had to repave a few sections.
Yeah, notably, probably the two sections that I noticed the most while I was out there was turn 1. As you're going up and over and on the inside there, where we actually saw David wrap around the outside and carry a lot of speed. On the inside on that, there's actually a big bump, and it launches your car kind of in the air, so you have to kind of plan for it. And also in turn 12, which is the end of the back straightaway, on the inside, there's a notable bump that's there. Quite honestly, if you know how to use that bump, it's very beneficial, because you come out of braking, you dive in, get your left front tire down into that bump, and then it kind of bounces your car, but it bounces it so that it turns and then lands you right on the rumble strips on the outside where there's grip, and you can pull right off under power. So I'll keep that one, and we'll figure out how to deal with the one up in turn 1 and kind of going around it a little bit more rather than diving into it.
1 hour left to go here at Circuit of the Americas. We've got up front the Ferrari 488 driven by Martin Fuentes, and there is the battle for second, and it continues between Shelby Blackstock and Alec Udell. And this is a 63 car, the DXCT Racing vehicle driven by David Askew. Big slide, and whoops.
Ooh, yeah, you get through there. I think he was just a little bit offline on the beginning. One of the things is you got to stay in on the red, and it looked like he got a couple of his tires outside the red. What that means is there's less grip, and he got a little crossed up. And just like you're saying earlier, it's a rhythm course, and sometimes when you get out of rhythm, it'll sometimes cost you some time. David will get back in rhythm and get rocking, and I'm sure that he'll work his way back forward.
Well, he had the pace to catch the 80 one time. I'm sure he'll have the pace to catch him again. Still a long way to go. And if you're going to have a mistake or a spin, you might as well do it early. You got plenty of time to make up for it.
Absolutely, and that's we can. He'll be able to work. You can see some cars, try to wrap it a little bit more, some less. But in the case of David, with the time he went through there, his left side tires were outside of those rumble strips, which means you just don't have as much traction. You go to the throttle, and it just upsets the car.
And there again is Shelby Blackstock and Alec Udell on the exit of turn number 11. And they'll head past the sponsor boards and head down to turn number 12. We got some CrowdStrike branding down there on the outside,
yes,
which is always nice to see. And Austin, Texas, this is my first time here. It's my first time to a lot of these places that we've been going to. But the city is famous for a couple things, music and food. Got a favorite restaurant around here?
We unfortunately I don't, but a part of it is that every time, we were talking about this last night, we went out to dinner as actually Razzle Dazzle and David Askew and myself and Bob went out to dinner, and it was just a little Italian place. Wasn't anything fancy, but Austin's known for its barbecue, and it's just about there's crazy barbecue places all over the place. And unfortunately, whenever I get down here, we're so racetrack focused. We're doing practice, testing, qualifying, one thing after the other. We haven't made it out to actually establish like our favorite, but we spent a good bit of time down here, and I bet you that some of our teammates have plenty of great places to go out for. Have you made it out since you've been visiting?
Well, we've gone to a couple different places, but it's really hard to find bad food here, is what I
It's
discovered.
true.
Every place we've
Absolutely.
gone to, this is my favorite place. Every night that we go,
Yes,
and I'm
sir.
excited for tonight too. So after we wrap
Good.
things up this afternoon,
Absolutely.
looking forward to dinner. So down the hill in turn number 2. This is another really cool section of this racetrack. Again, I've only ever driven this place in sims, so getting to ride around, we set up the A-frames earlier this weekend, and getting to experience this racetrack in person really gives you an appreciation for how much elevation is in that turn 1 and turn 2 section. You climb up to 1, and then you drive right down 2. Cars in compression a little bit as it kind of bottoms out as it heads into the S. It's such a dynamic section. CrowdStrike fastest lap. Fuentes in a 2:08.473 here at the 57-minute mark.
That's flying for race pace. That's for sure. We saw in qualifying, 205s and actually 204s. So you can see the difference. Several things. Obviously, it's a lot warmer this afternoon than it would be in qualifying earlier today. But to be running 208s, 208s and ultimately 209s for race pace is a pretty fast pace to be running. Especially here we are 35 minutes or thereabouts, 34 minutes into the race.
Well, it's also important to keep an eye on the race that you're racing. We talked about the different classes earlier this afternoon. We have a look at P1TS again, and you see David Askew, even with the spin, still in podium here for the Pro-Am category. So I think it's important to keep in mind that even with the little slip-up, I think they're still lined up for a trophy, and I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely, especially from a team championship perspective, as well as overall championship perspective for David Askew and for Ryan Dial, the 63 car. We're the class is thinner this year than it has been, given all the COVID and everything like that. But the competition is no less. You can see that Fuentes is out there, overall leader, kicking butt. And traditionally, without the schmozzle that we had at the beginning, you'd actually have Gandor and David Askew up in that same area, along with Alec and Shelby. So it's great that we actually have as much time as we do, because here after a little while David will go ahead and hand the car off to Ryan Dial, and he'll go out there and he'll run as fast a laps as the car will give him, and they'll be fast. I have no doubt. Just a matter of what else happens between now and then, because these big gaps that we have now, one double yellow, one full course caution, and everybody's right stacked on top of each other.
I was going to make that point, and full course yellows are always a drama maker. They were at Sonoma. Do we have one at Road America? I feel like we had one.
We definitely had a full course caution at Road America, and it's one of those things that actually helps with some of the drama. If you're out on the course yourself, you don't want to see them. Well, sometimes you want to see them, but most of the time you don't. We see them here at Circuit of Americas not as often.
Right.
Mostly because of the expanse that you have if you go off the track. Normally, many times, I'll say, because it does happen, but many times you don't hit anything and you're able to get the car either out of the way so that it can stay there and not be in any. You can see on the screen right now, there's little off-roads. You can take your car and get behind the wall easily. It's a very large course that allows you to be able to do get off the course or stay out of the way as much as you can. Or if you go off, don't hit anything, keep on going.
Well, I definitely full course yellows always create drama, and as one of my favorite NASCAR announcers, Larry McReynolds, says, cautions breed cautions. So there's always that potential. So again, we've still got a long way to go, and soon our pit window will open up, and then we get to trade out drivers, and that creates a whole other dynamic here. We're going to put our pro drivers in second, and that'll kind of mix things up a little bit, because it's not always true that the other team driver is exactly the same pace relative to the other team drivers for the other team. So we might see some mix-up happen after the pit stops as well.
Yeah, especially here where you have the Pro-Am class going. In all of the Pro-Am cars, you have all of the amateurs that started the car. So in the case of David Askew, he's the Am in the Pro-Am. Then you'll have Ryan DL who will come in as the Pro. And each of those cars, you're actually then going to have professional drivers. Similar to right now, I mean, if you look at it, Alec Udell and Shelby Blackstock are pro drivers in those cars, because they're running in the silver category, which is it's not Pro-Am, it's silver category cars. So you have pro drivers. In the case of Fuentes, he's out there, as the Am, running times that are besting, Shelby and Alec Udell. So good on him for the lap times that he's been able to, lap times and the laps he's been able to put together.
Again, there's James Fronis. Just took a look at his team down there on the pit lane, and really racing truly is a team sport. CJ, there's a lot of people involved with transporting the vehicles, getting them set up, fixing them when things don't go quite right. Tell me a little bit about the team aspect of racing and motorsport, and specifically your experience with CrowdStrike Racing and AWS.
Yeah, it's absolutely a team sport. There are so many aspects to everything that you do on track, but in order to be able to get the car on track, just you think that it's a car, you're just going to go out and turn the key, start it, and run and drive away. No, these are high performance machines that, just in the case of even my TCR car, in order to be able to bring it out on track, there's a whole warm-up procedure. They put the car in the air, they take the front tires off, they put blocks on there in order to be able to run the tires, so that they're actually going through warming up the gearbox and transmission, all by a very specific schedule, if you will, getting to certain temperatures and things like that, such that you can go out there and enjoy these high performance machines. So, we have tire people that are, doing the tires. We have people that are behind the scenes making sure that we make it to drivers' meetings, because drivers are kind of forgetful, and we don't necessarily we're really good when it comes time to get in the car, but if you tell us we got to go to a meeting, you better drag us along to get there. We talked about swag and the marketing aspects. There's so many different pieces and parts to to these teams, especially DXDT. We have a large and growing team, 3 TCR cars, 2 GT3 cars, and each of those has, a number of people behind each and every one of those, being able to make sure that the cars go out on course and the drivers are prepared. I enjoy the benefit of being able to have, Brian Sellers as our driver coach for our TCR team. So we'll go out there and practice, and we'll come back where we'll review video and data and show us all the things we did wrong and tell us how we can do them better. And each and every time we go out as a team, all of our drivers get better. So all of that teamwork comes together. And, just as you see here, you see Joe and Chris sitting there on the box for James Safronis. They're, really had to put together a great effort in order for James to be out there running 4th overall in a GT3 car that is intentionally, is many years old. I think it's a 2016 model, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that range. So it's by race car standards, it's old and should be out on the GT Celebration Tour by now.
Well, I want to go back to the driver debrief process. I got my first opportunity to go on track in a race car at Road America last weekend with another organization, driving a Spec Miata, and I was in the rain as well, so I had to be very careful.
Oh, God.
Someone else's car.
Road America.
At Road America in the rain.
Yeah.
Very scary.
Slick track in the rain.
Very slick. But I want to know, as a driver, when you go out to a racetrack for the first time, you talk about the preparation. How much of that is physical preparation, mental preparation, and how do you know that you've gotten to the limit of the race car, or is it something that you just have to continuously push and push and push until you make a mistake or find the limit?
It's exactly the latter. You continue to push, continue to try to go faster through areas, and it then becomes a battle between mind and body, or mind and mechanical body of the car, as to whether you're willing to push it even further and see if you can make the car do more. Or if you're going to say, okay, no, that's good enough, I don't want to go off in this turn. But quite honestly, if you're not spinning the car once in a while, you're not pushing hard enough. This, as the saying goes, if you're comfortable, you're not fast. You need to be on the edge in order to be fast, and that means you have to go out there and push the limit every time. As some of my racing coaches, between Brian Sellers and as well as Ryan DL when he has time. You have to go out and in every corner try to see God. So you go fast enough that you scare yourself. And when you're out there and you're able to do that, and you get comfortable being scared, but being able to go fast. And here we have the checker flag. James Safronis has just taken the GT Sports Club overall win. It looks like we have Ryan Gates coming in behind him for the GT2. GTSC classification win.
That's a really spectacular performance by James Safronis. He's got to be real proud of that. Again, you mentioned how that car really isn't the newest thing on the racetrack, and he did a great job taking it to a win in GT Sports Club. And then the second place looks like we've got, who's coming up in second? Got a car around again. That's the 63 David. In the carousel, David Askew, and he'll get back rolling. So
good.
when you spin 2 feet in, get that
Yep.
clutch in to keep it from stalling and the brake to keep from rolling into stuff, and he'll get right back on the horse and continue riding.
Yeah, he'll be happy. You know, I've had these days. He'll be happy to hand the car off to Razzle Dazzle and let him go out there and run with it. And you know, Ryan will be happy to be out there and get the extra tires. I guess Ryan Gates actually wasn't the white car that was right behind Sofronis, because Ryan's still out there at speed. So he will come around this time as he comes out onto the front straightaway and take the checker flag for the GT2. GT Sports Club, win today.
And on through, he will come in the 311 RS Motorsport car, and they'll peel off the racetrack here and relinquish the racetrack to the other competitors, which their pit window will open not too long from now, so they'll get that opportunity to come in. There's a look at the replay. The carousel, such a fast corner. You're relying on the downforce here, CJ, and the slightest undulation here can send the car sideways. Yeah,
and you have to remember that these cars have been out there for a while, and the tires are starting to go. So, he gets in there with a little bit of speed and obviously a little bit too much, and the back end comes around. It definitely happens. That's one of the things with a GT3 car, is that there's so much aero downforce. You have to drive it as if it's always going to be there, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, and I think with cars with this much downforce as well, there are some instances where the harder you push the car, the better it'll stick to the racetrack.
Absolutely.
Too. So there's that. That's in the back of your mind. Your mind's telling you, I can't go through this corner that fast, but the car will tell you got to go through that corner that fast to make it stick. So that's a challenge as well.
It's absolutely the case, and you can actually see here that is that Portad that's driving this at this point?
Yes, Fred Portad, and it'll be Jan Halen that'll take over here shortly.
Yeah, so there's been some spins and other types of things out there, and it seems like we have everybody out there battling away for the last few minutes here before we get into. Traditionally, you'll actually have the pit window that'll open up here just shortly. Given that you have the amateurs in the car and you want to have your fastest driver in for the longest amount of time, as soon as that pit window opens up, I expect to see the amateur drivers dive into pit lane and change out drivers, fill the car, make sure it has the right amount of gas in it, and hand off to the pro drivers with 4 brand new tires on the car that have come out of the heater boxes, so they should be up to speed, rather quickly.
So with about 45 minutes left, we're about halfway through this one, and we'll be expecting to see that pit window open shortly as Fred Portad has just gotten around David Askew in that 63. Going back to the carousel, that is a challenging corner. It's sort of, you kind of climb up into it, and then you're kind of downhill slightly to the right. It's sort of a triple apex corner, CJ.
Yeah.
But, going back to the downforce levels, how much do we tweak these cars as opposed to a TCR or a TCA car? Is there a lot of setup tweaking that you can do or or is there kind of a base setup for every track?
So you may have a base setup for the cars for every track, but you're going to tweak, you're going to change these teams. The 04 and 63 team in practice as well as in previous testing have tried and changed a lot of things. And like you said, in TCR, we came from Indy and we had 2 days of testing, and we set the cars up for Indy and had a great Indy setup, or we believe we do. And we came here and we decided, let's go out in the first practice with our Indy setup and see how the car handles. We came back and said, no, get that out of there. We changed a handful of things because it just wasn't good for this course. Each course has its own, how many right turns, left turns, how much are you using the curbing, how much are you going over those sleeping policemen, bollard things that they have out on the track. So ride height, obviously all the suspension tuning as far as the rebound, dampening that you have in the car, all of these things are all very much set up, and each of the cars spend a lot of time on the setup, setup rig in order to be able to be adjusted, and they're also adjusted by the drivers. What Colin Brown likes may not be what Ryan Dial likes, and you also have to make sure that the car is set up for both drivers. What David Askew and what Ryan Dial like may be completely different, but they have to be able to drive the same car, so you have to be able to bring those things together and make both drivers fast with whatever setup you put in the car.
For sure. We're seeing an epic battle right now between the top 3 overall drivers right now. Fuentes out front, then Shelby Blackstock and Alec Udell. And with the pit window open, you're going to be scrambling to get your pro driver in if you're Fuentes, to get Rodrigo Baptista in the car to just try to see if they can hold off the silver class cars in behind them as they battle for the silver race the lead. So this is going to get really spicy here when they hit pit lane.
Yeah, no doubt. But Fuentes is out there and doing really well. You can see he's diving in as well as Shelby Blackstock. So they're going to dive in immediately and swap out drivers. So, it's yep, and actually we have David Askew, just as we thought. As soon as the window opened up, everybody's diving in from the Pro-Am side of the house.
This will be Ryan DL jumping in the DXDT Racing number 63 car now. Rodrigo Baptista jumping in what was the race-leading Ferrari 488. Alec Udell stayed out a lap, and we call that in the racing industry an overcut. And why might that be advantageous right now?
So Alec's going to go out there, and Alec's not a slow driver. He's a pro himself. He's going to go out there. He's going to run as fast as he possibly can and then bring the car in probably in the next lap or two. He might actually stay out there. And the whole idea is to be able to gain time on track such that when he comes in and the next driver gets in and comes back out, that they still stay in front of these cars that are actually on pit lane. So the whole idea is to run blistering fast laps while these guys are sitting here still. That will be faster than the lap that their out lap that comes out and goes around. And, with Alec, I don't doubt that he'll be successful in that.
So, and the race off of pit road, there's a minimum pit time. You got to sit there and wait, and there goes the 93 with Trent Hinman behind the wheel now, and he'll chase Rodrigo Baptista out of the pit lane and keep that pit limiter on. There's an electronic device in that car that will hold the car under the pit road speed until they get past that orange board. Then they're free to accelerate to drivers left of that white blend line that you see at the exit of the pit lane area. And Alec Udell, I imagine, will hit pit lane here shortly. And this is really the race we're watching, is this 33 Windward Racing car and the number 1 and the 93, where those cars will come back together in turn 1 next lap.
Yeah, Alec's really pushing it. You can see he's actually getting a little bit of a wheel spin out of the turns. These cars do have some traction control, so I'm sure there's some assist there, but he's using every bit of the grip that the car does have, trying to go as fast as he possibly can, so that when he comes in and does the driver swap, that when the driver that gets in the car after him will go ahead and get out in front of the other car that's hot on track right now, warming their tires up.
It looks like we're going to have to wait a whole other lap to see this, because he's going to stay out again.
And that decision normally is made based upon how fast he was in this first lap. Must have been good, because they're looking to compound on that and let Alec go ahead and continue to pound down fast laps out there.
Well, taking a look at the P1TS software, we can see that Alec Udell's last lap was a 2:08.55, which is pretty much on pace with what the leaders were running before. So he's not slowing down, and we'll try to take this opportunity to leapfrog the front runners.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the challenge here is that the other car that came in earlier is gone out on brand new tires, sticker tires, which is what you run for qualifying. And it's not like they have to warm them up too much, because they're coming out of a heat box, so they're going to be reasonably warm. It does take a little time in order to get up to speed. So it'll be interesting to see when that final is swapped out, because they were really close on track, that's for sure. We'll see how the overcut works out for them.
And some at home that are wondering why it's good to have hot tires, well, there's actually sort of a fine line there. Tires are, they work well when they're warm, because hot and sticky rubber is really, really, really grippy. You get it too hot, though, and it just turns into ice and it gets really greasy. So there's a fine line you got to straddle there, CJ, to keep them in the operating temperature.
There's a fine line there, and it's not only actually the heat of the tire itself. You have to remember that within those tires there is air, or in many cases it's nitrogen in these tires, and that for every 10 degrees of increase in temperature, you're actually increasing the pressure. Normally in most tires about 0.8 psi per 10 degrees. What happens there is you get a lot of pressure in the tire. If you get your tires overheated, you've got more pressure in the tire. Therefore, the actual spring rate in reaction of the tire to the actual pavement itself changes. By having those changes, it actually impacts the way the car handles, and you can have a huge swing by just little 1, 2, 3 psi changes. In NASCAR, it's by the quarter of a pound they make major changes to the race cars. In these cases, you're probably in the ½ pound to 1 pound range. So you don't want to buzz the tires and get them too hot.
Right, and again, you mentioned the pressure changes. Again, softer pressures generally grippier, but you're going to be trading off the durability of that tire. The more contact pressure you're using, the more is touching the road, and the more it'll wear out over the course of the race. So with 38 minutes to go, that is it should be Kyle Marcel. Oh, they're taking that car behind the wall, maybe?
They're pushing it back.
Pushing it back into the box here. Were they serving outside of the box?
Yeah, they're serving. I don't know what. They definitely, maybe the fuel rig couldn't reach the place where they had change the tires.
It certainly costs him a little bit of time there, and that
Yeah.
will generally time on the pit lane is a whole lot more than it is out there on the racetrack. So you sit for a tenth of a second in pit lane, it's a whole bunch of feet on the racetrack.
We'll know how bad it is when they drop the car. If as soon as they drop the car it tears off, that means they're definitely going to be hurt from time. Here's Alec Udell still out there coming around the pit window. He's still got a little bit of time, but I'd expect to see this be his last lap out there. We'll hopefully see him dive in, and then we'll see how the battle between him and the other car actually pans out as far as trying to do the undercut.
Looks like the 80 car has returned to the racetrack now, and they didn't waste any time getting out of there. So did cost them a little bit, and actually behind the 63 now.
Yeah.
And I believe that would have been for position with Ryan DL in that car.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it shakes out here in a little bit, because there's still some cars shaking their way through the timing and scoring here. So we'll see if Udell hits a pit lane soon. He's going to have to. The pit window will close relatively shortly, and he'll turn that car over to Russell Ward in the Windward Racing Mercedes.
Yeah, given the amount of time we have left, he should be.
Yeah, your speculation was
Ryan.
Gungor just slightly overshot his marks here in the pits, and as a consequence, they couldn't get the fuel rig all the way engaged. They were aware of that from the beginning, and they elected to do it the way that they did, just for safety purposes and to make sure that they weren't running afoul of any rules. So definitely a big hit, unfortunate, but that's part of the learning process, and Zion had not done any testing in this car prior to this weekend, so you have to expect there are going to be some learning moments along the way.
So pretty much what we expected there, CJ. Just overshot it just a little bit. Couldn't quite get the fuel rig in, and that cost him a bunch of time.
Yeah, that's you notice when they pulled in there was a lot of tape on the ground. You really need to place the car perfectly in order to be able to get the fuel hose to reach your car. And here we have Alec Udell pulling in. You can see he stops right on the tape in the right spot. They'll be able to do fueling tires, get the other driver in. And not have the issue that the Acura had here just a minute ago.
I've always wondered, I mean, how tricky is that to land the car right in the designated spot? They have some markers for you to land on, but that's a challenging thing to get as much braking force as possible, to stop as quickly as possible, and not undershoot or overshoot that. That's a skill in itself.
Yeah, there's practice in all of this. Not only the pit crews themselves in the choreography, if you will, of all the different movements out there, but as the driver, coming in to be able to make that pit stop and stop right on a dime where you need to. The one good thing is that you're not going more than 50 kilometers an hour to begin with, so it's not that hard and the brakes are really good. But at the same time, you could slide through, as we saw with the Acura. It is very, very possible.
So it looks like the 33 will pull away, and this is the crucial moment here. Where will he pop out in relation to Rodrigo Baptista? And it looks like he's not going to beat them out. As he's actually going to lose quite a significant amount of time here in this exchange. So this doesn't look like this was a strategy to play.
Yeah, it didn't work out for them, that's for sure, as far as from a time perspective. And one of the things that we'll see here is you're seeing the benefit of sticker tires, for Baptista, out there. So we'll see how he, how he does on sticker tires himself. His tires should be better for a few more laps, faster towards the end. But track position is big, and he's going to have to make up some space here. And
about 5 seconds extra spent on the pit lane as well, and it also doesn't help as we go back to P1TS here. You see Ryan DL, his last lap was the best that car has seen so far, a 2:07.558. So that's DL pushing and finding some pace in that car. And so with DL running fast laps, that means that the other drivers running fast laps. Baptista and Hinman both ran very quick laps. Baptista is in the 2:07s now, as is Hinman. So they're running quick laps as the 33 is running 2:08s. A second or so a lap translates to several the longer you stay out. So who knows why the decision was made, but they made that decision, and unfortunately it's going to cost them a bit of time. Still a battle for the overall lead here, but Baptista in a Pro-Am car and Hinman in a silver category. This is an impressive run by this Ferrari team.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of those, banner types of runs for that team. We'll see if Baptista can actually stay out in front of Trent. We've seen really good pace from both cars actually this weekend. So we'll see if Trent can hunt him down, or if Baptista can actually stretch the gap, because we've seen the Ferrari on the top of the fastest lap time or fastest speed board.
This race has been very entertaining so far. GT World Challenge America and SRO America put on a great show, and they work very closely with CrowdStrike and AWS, kind of a multifaceted partnership there. And we're going to show you how CrowdStrike protects SRO.
When we first looked at the opportunity of working with CrowdStrike as a technical partner and as our security partner, we knew it would help us in this world that we live in today, but we didn't realize how much it would help us to be secure in a post-COVID environment, or as we have to exist today, as we all say, it's a new normal that we have to operate on. When we were very impressed with CrowdStrike, with the ability to quickly respond in seconds to threats, that's been a great aspect of our partnership.
And back live here from Circuit of the Americas, you're watching CrowdStrike Racing's coverage of GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. Just over 30 minutes remaining in our first of 2 races here this weekend. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined by CJ Moses. And so far, been a pretty entertaining race. There's been a little bit of drama. There's been a couple spins. Right at the start was one of them. And then we just had some pit stop strategy that didn't quite work out for the Windward Racing car, but still, Rodrigo Baptista in the Squadra Corsa car leads Trent Hinman now by just about 2 seconds. And as they tried to pull away here in the arena section, 2 very different racing machines. I mean, they're both mid-engined sports cars, but again, Acura versus Ferrari. I love GT3 racing and really all of sports car racing because of the differences in the cars. I do want to chat a little bit about GT racing in general, and let's talk about TC racing as well. So the differences between maybe the car that you drive versus the cars that these guys drive, maybe what are some of the fundamental differences there?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the base cars themselves, you know, in touring car, for the most part, especially in TCR, you have 4-door sedans, you know, roughly boxy little grocery getters for the most part. The fastest little grocery getters that you probably will see, but nonetheless, when you get into the GT categories, you're actually seeing sports cars, 2-door, whether mid-engined, rear-engined, you know, types of sports cars that you could, you know, roughly go out and buy as well on the street. Obviously, these are purpose-built, you know, GT3 or GT2 cars. So they're based on street cars, but then have, you know, about 75% of the parts changed out in order to be able to be as reliable and capable as they are. But nonetheless, the differences between the class start out with the base car themselves, and then kind of go from there. The overall, you know, intent of TCR, you know, as a class, is to have the most capable, you know, touring car that you can have, and touring car being the 4-door, you know, boxy sedans for the most part, and then in GT, you know, a grand touring, if you will, car, sports car as we would all know them. To be out there and to be the cars that are.
That's right, the race within
and here's
the
Ryan
race.
with
Sports
James
Club,
Sofronis.
overall winner James Sofronis. James, a great opportunity to get out there and really display the kind of performance that these older generation GT3 cars have. You were out there mixing it up with some of the new gen guys in GT World Challenge America.
Well, it was a lot of fun. I mean, the Audi R8 Ultra still has lots of legs and life left into it. And the G&G Racing guys did a great job prepping the car. So I knew I could push hard. And if I didn't get hit on the start, I think I could have stayed with the top 3. And then eventually I realized it wasn't worth pushing, and it was more about just bringing home the win and showcasing that this class has a lot of future, because there's so many of these GT3 cars here in the States, and we have half a dozen in our shop. And I wanted to do this race to promote the class, and in doing so, show how much fun it is. 40-minute sprint races, 2 of them a weekend, and basically a lot of fun with bronze-type drivers. And so for me, it was just more about showcasing it, having fun, and really showing how good these cars are and how fast they still are.
Yeah, it definitely looked like you were having a lot of fun out there. I know you got a jet to get home, and say happy birthday to somebody.
Yeah, happy birthday, Nargis. Coming home to you soon. Love you.
Congratulations.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. I want to go back briefly. We were talking about the differences between TC cars and GT cars. And, Kevin Boehm's number 9 Honda Civic Si that he runs in TCA, that car has essentially a stock engine and transmission. So now these cars are far from that, the GT cars, but it's so interesting to me that you can take what is essentially just a normal Honda Civic Si that's come off the production line, strip out the interior and put a couple go-fast parts on it, but otherwise they're pretty much what you'd roll off the showroom floor.
Yeah, the Honda performance development, Honda Civic that they actually have in TCA is quite amazing because it is a turnkey race car. You buy it from Honda as a race car, but what they've done, prior to you getting it, is essentially take a Honda Civic, make sure they don't put in all the normal interior and stuff like that, and they throw in a race seat and put a roll cage in it and some of the safety gear. Upgrade the brakes a little bit because obviously you're going some speeds out there. But as far as the engine's concerned, you're at stock power, and depending on the balance of performance, sometimes less than stock. But it is quite amazing that you can take a literal grocery getter in the case of Kevin's car, the Honda Civic Si, and do some safety bits to it, and off you go and race very competitively. As we see Kevin's on a tear here, five wins in a row.
I think he's maybe not going to the grocery store. I think he's going to the hardware store and picking up a couple trophies. So he's gone quite a bit the past couple of weeks at Road America and Circuit of the Americas. He's still got a race. You guys both have a race tomorrow, which is a makeup race for St. Pete, I believe. Or I think it's one of the makeup races. But it's a third race for the weekend. So and again, tomorrow, as you go into that third race, what's your mindset like? You've done 2 races so far this weekend, so you've kind of got a better idea now of how the car handles, where you can push, where you need to pull back a little bit. So is the third race often, or I guess the second race usually, is that your better race of the 2?
Yeah, it's. I find that, at least for me, especially for some of the courses, this course we've raced at a little bit more, but as you get more and more experience on the track, I find that I get faster race by race. Today I was much faster, not only in lap time, but overall. Than I was yesterday, and I intend to continue to, follow that tomorrow and go faster and, fight for the podium rather than just to be with the pack tomorrow. And we've got fastest corner speed here at the S's, so I'm loving these graphics that we've been able to put out here. So it starts to give you a little bit more as a viewer, a little bit more insight into what's going on and which cars are fast where, and you can see the difference between, the 20 car all the way down to James Safronis and the older generation GT3 car. Quite a disparity in speeds, through those corners.
Well, I was taking a look at the P1TS while we were watching that here, and we're going to go back and show you again the difference between the number 80 and the number 63, which was earlier driven by David Askew. And you can see where the 80 had gained some ground with a couple of those incidents that the 63 had, and then the 80 got stuck in pit lane, and they swapped positions again. So it's been sort of all over the place today between those two. And now it's, again, Kyle Marcelli and Ryan Dial in the 63. So it's been very busy out there today. And there's Jan Halen in the Wright Motorsports Porsche. This one was turned around backwards in turn number 1. And they've recovered, and we're running 4th overall right now. So pretty good rebound for them. Yeah,
what kind of gap are we seeing actually between the Halen and Dial? Are we...
looks like about let's see here. Let's see, gap... about 8 or 9 seconds, it looks like, from DL up to Halen. So it might be closing in here, as DL's last time was a 207.879, and Halen's running a very similar mid-207. So we could see those cars sort of converge here in the last 25 minutes or so.
Yeah, one of the things you'll notice is that the pros tend to be rather close on lap times. So unlike some of the amateurs, you'll actually see second or second and a half deltas between some of their laps. You'll actually see the pros normally will be tenths, a few tenths, sometimes car and track. So 8 seconds is still quite a sizable gap to try to make up, unless, by chance we were to have a full course caution or something like that. But I wouldn't put it past Ryan DL to, he's definitely out there trying.
We're going back to the race vision. We were talking about kind of top speeds at the ends of the straightaways here for GT3 cars. And you said the other day you were doing 148 at the end of the straight?
148.2, I think, was that. And GT3, we're going to be just shy of 160, right around 160-ish.
What's that like when you jump out of the race car and into a street car? Does it feel, because to me, when I rode Atlanta, I was only doing maybe 110. I felt like I was doing 20 on the highway after.
Yeah, well,
we'll
that's
talk about
one of the
Alec in
things.
just a
Oh,
second.
here's
I did
Ryan
really
again.
quickly
We'll get
clean
back to
up
that.
what happened on the pit stop. Evidently, they had the wheel gun, and it went in the reverse direction at one point, and that was what the holdup was. They did lose a little bit of time during the pit stop as a result, but Alec Udell, not a bad stint, I would say, considering he only had about 4 or 5 laps in this Mercedes-AMG GT3 prior to this weekend. That was at a test day at VIR several months ago, but Alec wouldn't agree with my assessment. He said, yeah, it was just all right. He said he was pretty frustrated that he couldn't make more progress, couldn't make any passes. He gave a lot of credit to Shelby Blackstock, who just didn't make any mistakes over the course of all the pressure that Alec put on him over the course of that stint. He said the biggest thing that he noticed was just a general lack of grip in the track surface that caught him and the team a little bit by surprise, but it seems like it's affected everyone pretty evenly, because as unhappy as Alec was with the car on handling, especially exiting the corners, didn't seem like it was any worse off than anybody else. So it does seem like, especially with the heat, but even just in general, the track might not have the kind of grip that some of the teams were expecting, and it is making the drivers really have to earn their keep here this week, and they're up on the wheel.
Thanks, Ryan. And going back to our conversation about the speed, you know, I went about 110. I thought 60 was like painfully slow. You're doing almost 150. Is that, are you able to very easily, you know, jump in the race car and feel normal, or is that a transition you have to make every time?
No, I think now it's just normal. I just jump in and do that. I mean, there's many times that, you know, we'll be racing, like at Road America. I had my RV out at Road America, so I get out of the race car, I put things together, and I get in the RV and I drive home. So you're going from a car that's doing 150 miles an hour to, you know, a motorhome that's, you know, lucky to be doing 70 miles an hour. So it's just a switch that you flip in your head. You know, with some experience. I mean, and that's the thing is that you have some of the drivers here, just like you heard Alec Udell, that hadn't been in a GT3 Mercedes before, and other than a few laps, and then just went out there and laid down blistering laps with, you know, some of the best. So I think with more experience, just like Alec has, you're able to flip the switch and drive the car for whatever grip it provides as fast as it can possibly go. So you do get used to it. But once again, you don't want to get too used to it, because the whole idea is that you always have to be pushing the limit. And if you get out there and you feel too comfortable, it means you're not going as fast as you can be or could be going.
Sure, and this racetrack specifically has got a whole bunch of very tight hairpins and a lot of blind corners that you're kind of looking out the left side window or the right side window. How much of a challenge is that, trying to spot your apexes when the corners are such a tight radius here?
They're tight radius, and the other thing is that although the TCR cars are big and boxy, the seats are really low. So I can barely see over the steering wheel. I feel like I need a phone book or something like that. Yeah, I need a booster seat to sit in the car, but you need to be low. So just exactly what you said, in many cases, you're using the side windows in order to be able to spot where your apexes are and do your turn-in points blindly. And what you have to do is you identify places on the track that you can see.
And there's some AWS signs on the run-up to turn number 1. We had one blow over yesterday, found it behind the Armco, so we found it. We got it back up there. I think it's missing again, though, so I don't know what's going on. But AWS is one of the great partners with SRO America and CrowdStrike. And we would like to show you how that AWS tech is used in the motorsport industry. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm CJ Moses, the Deputy Chief Information Security Officer for Amazon Web Services. Coming on as title sponsor with the SRO has allowed us to create new innovation, to use our technologies in ways they've never been used before. The cloud is very capable. All of these 195 services that we offer provide vast different capabilities, but customers come up with even better ways to use it than we ever thought of. In the case of the SRO, we're going to be bringing better experiences through to the TV itself. Second screen experiences where we're going to be doing a lot of predictive analytics and things like that. These are the types of things that we want to see our customers from AWS actually do. And by partnering with the SRO, we're introducing it to a whole new venue and to sports cars. We're bringing a lot of excitement to it as well. And when you have excited fans that are getting a better experience and we're able to showcase the technology that AWS has doing that, I think it's a win-win for SRO, for us, and for the fans that are actually engaged in the watching of the event.
And back live for the last 17 minutes and 15 seconds of GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS from Circuit of the Americas. Again, my name is Kyle Heyer, joined by CJ Moses, driver of the number 04 CrowdStrike AWS Honda Civic Type R TCR. We've been watching this race most of the afternoon here now with about 17 minutes to go. We did notice during that break that there is a challenge for the lead potentially shaping up, about 2.8 seconds between Rodrigo Baptista and Trent Himmons, so we'll keep our eye on that. You're looking at Ryan DL right now as he tries to reel in Jan Halen, and he's about 8.5 seconds back from Jan, but still with 16 minutes to go, that's not an impossible task.
Not impossible. Definitely a large mountain to climb. That's a lot of time to make up, between pros that are running similar lap times, lap by lap. Ryan's out there doing the best he can, no doubt. Car does look a little damaged. The headlight on the left side is popped in. That's probably causing a little bit of aero problem, but all in all, he's still running really good lap time, so it's not too bad.
If you're wondering how we know what the individual gaps between cars are right now and where everyone is on the racetrack, again, we've been using P1TS, so thanks again for allowing us to utilize P1TS software to help our viewers understand what's going on behind the scenes right now. Rodrigo Baptista continues to lead this race, and that number 1, that Squadra Corsa car, has been amazingly fast all day. When they started out with Fuentes in the car and now Baptista, they are continuing to impress in a Pro-Am category car in front of 2 silver class cars, which again, I guess a pro lineup in there is it's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah,
and they're doing it right now.
Yeah, it says a lot from the standpoint of what Fuentes did as far as his drive in that car. As an AM, he not only led but bested some really notable pros out there, and then you have Baptista that gets in the car and then continues that pace or better. So we're really seeing an excellent run. Trent's behind him trying to reel in Baptista, but they're the gap seems to be kind of holding steady, high 2 to 3 second gap range. We got 14 minutes to go, and we'll see how tire degradation plays. But it looks like Baptista's still on the 207 lap time space, so I don't see it impacting them too much.
And you talk about Circuit of the Americas as a technical racetrack in some aspects, but there have been tracks that we go to, like Road America, which I think plays into the hands of certain cars more than others. But Circuit of the Americas has 2 very distinct personalities. The first half of the racetrack is very fast and flowing. The second half of the racetrack is all about getting the car slowed down and focusing on pointing the car to the shortest route possible to negotiate this very tight stadium section. So explain to me a little bit how those sections differ behind the wheel, and do you have to take a different approach to one half versus the other?
Yeah, not only from one half to another. There are a lot of the turns you actually have individual, methods by which to get through them. I mean, some turns that are very late apex, meaning that you're actually, rather than hitting the turn like dead center, you're actually trying to wrap it around so that you actually hit it further on around the turn and carrying the speed. But the tight and technical space that we are back section of the track, you're going to be down into second gear or to lower gears and trying to launch off of them. In the case of my car, this front-wheel drive, by doing so, you're actually going to burn the tires off if you don't do that properly, maintain a good gap, get the car pointed before you go back to the throttle. So this section here that you're seeing on TV right now through the S's is all about the rhythm. You're carrying a lot of speed through there. Then you're going to come up and you're actually going to, launch through another section where you have to actually slow down quite a bit here and then cut across turn 9, going over the bollard that they don't want you to, but you end up having to, jumping the curbs on the inside, and then back down here into turn 11, where the second part of the track starts. You get a nice long straightaway before at the end of this straightaway you're down into that deep technical section where your second gear at the end of the straightaway, diving inside to the left, like I said, basically throwing the car into the rumble strips to grab the grip. Accelerating really hard, third gear, but then back to second right away and wrapping the inside to the right-hand side. So, you're back and forth between second and third gear, maybe fourth actually coming out there for a little bit, then back to second. So it's one of those sections, or those, like you say, it's a track of two tails. The first part being fast and flowing, and the second part after that long straightaway of being a very technical and slower speed comparatively portion of the track before you round around to the front straightaway.
You mentioned the curbing here, and for those that are unaware of how the racetracks are constructed, you see the red and white striping is actually, they're basically concrete rumble strips that you might, not exactly the same style that you see on the highway, but a similar idea. You drive over them and make a whole lot of racket. At Road America, they're enormous and really uncomfortable. Here, they're relatively tame, with the exception of those big yellow, I call them anti-cut curves on the apexes of a couple of these corners. You mentioned that you've been running over them. Is that a shock to the suspension or even to your body as you drive over those things, or are they flat enough where you can kind of attack them?
So it varies, and actually at Circuit of the Americas, they have different ones that they bolt in. And we were worried that we'd have the huge ones here when we got here. Luckily, we don't have the huge ones. We have the medium ones. And the medium ones, I found that as long as you don't hit them right at their peak, so either on the back side or just on the front, you can run right over them and it doesn't shock the suspension, doesn't upset the car. You can see he just used that as a launch across the center at turn 9. And you can do that all day long, given that they're reasonably soft, if you will, comparatively to go over them. It does depend on by car to car. Some cars can't go over those things very easy. By example, if you look at the Mercedes is front engine. The engine is very low in the car, and the car is rather low to begin with, versus the rear and mid-engine cars actually carry the engine higher and up in the frame of the car, so they're able to go over some of these things where the Mercedes may not be able to. So you actually have differences between cars as to how you can use different parts of the track versus others. So there's advantages and disadvantages for each. But in TC or the TCR car specifically, we didn't find any of the bollards or the sleeping policemen or the orange things that are in the way.
A lot of names for them is what I found.
Yeah.
Sleeping policemen, bollards, anti-cut. Some people call them Verstappers because they sort of installed them in the carousel because of Max Verstappen. So
yes, that's true. That's true.
So there's a lot of different names for them. But there's also what's notably missing this week is they do have ones that they install every couple dozen feet on corner exit at the track out points to keep people from running wide. Here's Ryan Marine.
Was not thrilled with the handling of this race car earlier in the weekend, but they were committed to trying a bunch of different things until finally something sticks. And of course they won't give away any secrets. They won't tell me what it is that they've changed, but one thing that they did hint at me was before they had a car that was more of a flowing car through the S's. Now it actually is a bit more violent. They say it kind of bounces around through the S's. It doesn't necessarily look like a great handling car or a fast car, but it goes faster. And as Martine told me, hey man, it's whatever works.
Oh, looks like Ryan found the volume control there this afternoon. We got just under 10 minutes to go. There's the race leader, Rodrigo Baptista. We were talking while Ryan was chatting away that he has turned up the wick this last couple minutes. He's gained about 2.5 seconds on Trent Hinman. He has also run the fastest lap of the race so far at 2:06.797. Is about 3/10 quicker than Hinman has run. So Baptista is flying right now, and this number 1 car is looking pretty solid to grab themselves a victory at the end of the day here.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like they are getting faster and faster as the fuel load burns off the car. So obviously they figured out a way to keep the tires under the car, and as Ryan was talking about there, seems like whatever setup change they made has really awoken the car, and it is flying out there.
So they're on lap number 37. About 5 seconds back, it's Trent Hinman in the number 93 Racers Edge Motorsports car. Then it's Russell Ward in the Windward Racing Mercedes, Jan Halen in the Wright Motorsports Porsche, Ryan DL in the DXDT Racing number 63. That's our buddy out there. And Kyle Marcelli in the other Racers Edge Acura NSX. He runs in 4th in class, 6th overall, about 14.5 seconds behind Ryan DL. So that's where everybody stands with 8 minutes left here in our first race of the weekend from COTA. We'll be back again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Time. We'll be joined by TCA driver Kevin Boehm, CrowdStrike Racing AWS driver Kevin Boehm, current points leader in TCA after coming off a couple race wins from this week and a couple weeks ago at Road America.
Yeah, he's put together a great string, 5 races in a row that he's won, and fingers crossed because we're always trying to not be superstitious, but also not get the superstitious gods mad at us.
Maybe not superstitious, just a little.
Just maybe a little. I think every race car driver is a little, even though we claim that we're not. But in his case, obviously, going for 6 in a row, which is always a daunting task. It's a highly competitive field, but Kevin has not only driven a great great line or a great on track. He also engineers himself.
Yeah.
So putting those two together, he's able to get the car to do the things that he needs it to do, and he doesn't have any miscommunication between the engineer and the driver.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I sort of have a question about, the different mindsets you put yourself in, because you're the Deputy Chief Information Security Officer at Amazon Web Services, and of course Kevin Boehm is an engineer at Honda. How does that, again, must be very data driven. Is that something that you utilize to your advantage in this series, and is the engineering part something that Kevin's really interested in setting up the car and that sort of deal?
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things Kevin and I enjoy doing together is that we're both very data centric. At Amazon, regardless throughout the entire company, data, using metrics to make decisions, being able to do data analytics across the board, being very analytical in general is how a lot of the business is run. Same thing applies even when working with Kevin. He respects driver input and things along those lines, but at the same time, he also wants to be able to get as much data out of the car that is empirical, therefore able to be trusted, and it's not just a feel, it's straight up the actual details that are there. Obviously lap time and things like that come into play, but even more so, the ability to, when we were testing out at Indy, he was actually working with me on the TCR car and its setup, and putting him in the car so that it wasn't only what I was telling him it was doing, he'd actually be able to get in and do it himself. And it's great to have Kevin as part of the CrowdStrike Racing team, as part of DXDT, in order to be able to bring that together, and for us to be able to be, my background is also engineering, a different kind on the computer side of the house, but engineers in general like to have data and like to be able to use that data in order to be able to make decisions or change the engineering itself.
And sometimes, in a certain case for Trent Hinman and Shelby Blackstock in the Racers Edge Acura, they've got data at their disposal, and sometimes, unfortunately, the best thing you can do is tell the driver to go faster or hope that somebody else goes slower. We take a look at P1TS one more time, and you can see this is the gap. The blue line is the second place driver overall. That's Trent Hinman's number 93. The white line is the number one Ferrari driven by Rodrigo Baptista. And you can see the last couple laps, again, that number 1 has just been pulling away little by little, and they've just found another gear and they're going for it.
Yeah, definitely. It's rare that you see Pro-Am teams that are on the top like this and pulling away. So they really have the setup. This is one of those weekends that they'll remember, and they definitely, as far as an amateur driver, Fuentes drove a great race and handed off to Baptista, who is just continuing on that tear.
So 4 minutes to go. That's probably about two or three laps left in the tank here at Circuit of the Americas here in Austin, Texas. This is a beautiful area. I'm from a normally chilly place, Rochester, New York, up there, and it's hot down here. It's also very humid, which I wasn't used to. So the environment's different as well. My first time down here.
Yeah, I'm originally from upstate New York as well, but have been living in Virginia or other warm climates for quite some time. And we ran at VIR, and it was 95 degrees and humid and hot, and I tell you that it's not as hot as far as temperature is concerned down here, but the last couple laps of each of these races, I've gotten so much sweat in my eyes, they're burning, and I didn't have that at VIR, and I think it's just the humidity that they have down here that's just stifling. People come to Virginia and say that during the summer, but here, for some reason, it's been even worse. It's an interesting, very thick air that they have in Texas.
I've seen some very exhausted race car drivers coming out of race cars this weekend. Obviously, we've talked about in the past, or actually earlier in the broadcast, what it takes mentally to push the car to the limit, but also physically. And it's not always necessarily in physical strength, which it certainly requires, but just withstanding temperatures and G-forces as well. I mean, there's a lot going on in the side of the race car, especially here with the temperatures climbing well into the triple-digit mark here inside the seat.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big part of that is hydration. And one of the things that I do is I try to hydrate ahead of time, because you don't want to, get into the car and just drink a bottle of water. You need to hydrate days ahead of time in order to be able to get into the car. You're going to sweat a lot. I ran an endurance race at Road Atlanta in 95-degree weather and 98% humidity, one of those types of situations. And I was in the car for 90 minutes to 2 hours. I got out of the car and I'd lost 12 pounds of water weight. And all that 12 pounds was probably in my race suit as it was drying. It was pretty... a pretty wet situation, but that's the type of thing that you have to be prepared to be able to be very hydrated, such that when you do sweat that much, you don't become dehydrated or heat stroke for that matter.
I always have people asking me that aren't familiar with motorsports, are race car drivers athletes? And 100%, my answer is always yes. And I justify this with, I ran track and cross country in high school. And what you just described, hydrating before the event, long before the event, is exactly the same thing we did when we ran. And I've seen data from drivers, heart rate data, that implies that they've been, their heart rate has been taken away just like a marathon runner for the entire duration of the event, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of stimuli that you're taking in, and it's an intense experience driving a race car. So 100% yes, drivers are athletes, at least in my opinion, and it takes a lot to be fast, and it takes a lot to be good and to be able to withstand a 90-minute race, especially when you talk about the 8-hour in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
That's a whole other ballpark as we get the white flag here for Baptista one more time around Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I do is I actually have my my iWatch, if you will, that I wear, and I just looked up as you were talking about that to see what my peak heart rate was today. During the race, 165 beats per minute.
Amazing.
And most people think, oh, well, you're just sitting in a car driving in a circle. How can you,
There's the data.
So I have the data that I carry, and that's one of the things is from an activity monitor and things like that. Just in that spike that today that I was going 818 calories just within that 40-minute period. Just sitting in a car.
Yeah, that's a pretty wild car to be sitting in at the speeds that you're going. So that's really cool data. Thanks for sharing that. As we got the white flag flying here, there is the second place car, Trent Hinman and Shelby Blackstock, that pairing. And this is they've won a lot this season, so this will be one of the rare times that they don't win. And they just got out raced today. That Ferrari out front has just been dominating this event, and they didn't give anything up in the pit stop sequence either.
No, they've run a perfect race, between Baptista, and Fuentes. They actually went out there and dominated. Had the perfect race that they needed to have, and definitely found the pace. Basically they were saying earlier that they weren't happy with the car. I think they're happy with the car now.
They got to be. I mean, they also ran the CrowdStrike fastest lap, 2:06.797. Unless they improve it this time by, that'll be what stands, which is a super impressive lap time around here. I think the track record here for a GT3 car is something like a 204, but again, we're in pretty hot conditions, but so that's going to kind of skew that just a little bit. Look at the team climbing the fence. That's the Racer's Edge guys, and they're excited. They're still on the podium. They're still happy.
Absolutely, and from their perspective, they won their race.
Yeah.
So within their class, they won. They didn't win overall, but they won their race, and here we have Baptista, that's going to come around and actually win not only the Pro-Am class, but overall against some notable pros here that we're racing.
For Squadra course, it's Rodrigo Baptista and Martin Fuentes that will come on through, pick up the checkered flag overall in GT World Challenge America, race number 1 here this weekend. Second place, the Racer's Edge Motorsports vehicle in number 93, driven by Trent Hinman and Shelby Blackstock, the Acura NSX GT3. In third place overall, second in the silver class, Russell Ward will bring home the number 33 Wright Motorsport, or excuse me, the Windward Motorsports entry. Earlier driven by Alec Udell. They had certainly a strong performance as well. And then Jan Halen in fourth, Ryan DL bringing the DXDT Racing number 63 home in fifth overall and third in class. There's a class podium for them, and that'll certainly be something to celebrate after what was not the best day ever, but they certainly still had got a good result out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I going back to the team, I think they'll be very happy with a third. They'll definitely be working tonight towards setup on the car, trying to make sure that they can, challenge for further up the podium tomorrow. What we saw from Baptista and Fuentes is something that will weigh on their minds tonight to figure out how they can try to make the Mercedes faster to keep up with the Ferrari. But nonetheless, I think overall a good day.
And for Jan Halen and Fred Pordad, this car was turned around backwards in the first corner, and they've rebounded for fourth overall. They've got to be thrilled with that. And again, this is a Pro-Am car. I believe it was an AM class car, an all-Am lineup at Road America and at Sonoma as well. So this is their first Pro-Am entry, at least since I've been doing this. So they've had a good day.
I believe Max Root is actually running in a little race over in over in France right now.
Oh, okay.
That's why they needed to change up.
That's a fair reason.
Yeah,
I think.
he my understanding was he actually was going to be over in the 24-hour race, so they had to find a backup driver, if you will.
Yeah.
So they did a good job apparently finding a backup driver.
Oh, well, they certainly did well. There's the 63 of Ryan DL as he comes across the line, and the DXDT Racing Mercedes. And we'll bring it again home in fifth overall. There's Kyle Marcelli, the other Racer's Edge entry. And this all comes back down to the pit lane mistakes that were made. That could have been a top 5 for them overall, but unfortunately didn't quite work out that way. There's Rodrigo Baptista's fastest lap CrowdStrike award, and do a little celebratory off-track driving there, and they can't penalize you once the checkered flag falls, right?
I guess not.
One out of fuel, maybe.
Yeah. In one of the other things, sometimes you may find drivers taking the long road home, we'll say. And what that is actually, we talked about all the marbles and rubber that you have build up on the outside of the tracks and stuff like that. And normally you stay out of that stuff because it actually gets stuck on your tires and causes you all kinds of grip problems. But after the race, you take the long road home in order to get that rubber on your tires, in order to be able to make sure you meet minimum ride heights because it adds to the circumference of your tire.
That's clever, and that's drivers that are data-driven. You figure out, hey, how much does that add? Oh, 1/10 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, let's do it.
Yeah.
I like that. That's really cool. There's a look at your race results for our second time at COTA this year, but our first race of the weekend. Pro-Am driver Martin Fuentes and Rodrigo Baptista at the top of the order. Then Trent Hinman, Shelby Blackstock, Russell Ward, Alec Udell, Fred Pordad, Jan Halen, David Askew, Ryan DL, your top 5. Then Marcelli and Gandor. Then the GT Sports Club drivers at the bottom of the list there. Their race was over 40 minutes in. But that was a fun race to watch. A little bit of strategy, a little bit of drama, a little bit of everything here in Austin, Texas.
It had a little bit of everything. And, as far as races go, I think, it was fun to watch. I enjoyed participating, and I also have enjoyed the weather that we have here, even though it's humid. Hopefully we stay out of the rain.
Here's some highlights for you at the start of the race. The wild 3 wide. I think we might have even had 4 there for a second as we headed down into turn number 1. Cars getting squeezed, and around went the Wright Motorsports entry. Just a touch there with the Jason Bell car. And then the chasing through the S's. A lot of great racing here amongst these front 3.
Yeah, the racing that we saw, early on for the lead was pretty amazing, and I think the class of the field has shown that the Ferrari definitely pulled out, early on in the race, and then also even in the pit stop.
And again, thanks again to P1TS Software for allowing us an in-depth behind-the-scenes look at all the data driving SRO America, and again, partner with AWS to bring you all that data live and in real time right here from Circuit of the Americas. We're going to step away for just a moment. We're going to let CJ get on with his day and get back to the paddock and chat about how to win tomorrow, and we'll talk to you later. CJ, thanks again so much for joining us here. Always a pleasure to share the booth with you, and we'll see you again at Indy.
Thanks again, and I very much look forward to Indy, and I think that race is a little bit longer, so we may, Kevin and I may tag team in and out, so we're really looking forward to Indy in general, so I appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
All right, it's going to CrowdStrike AWS driver, the number 04 Honda Civic Type R TCR driver, CJ Moses. CJ, thanks so much. We'll see you later.
It was a brilliant stint for Rodrigo Baptista, no question about that. Rodrigo, you had to take it home after Martin's really great opening stint. How much pressure were you feeling behind, or were you pretty comfortable throughout your run?
Yeah, I think you said everything. You know, Martin did a good job. The team did a great job on the pit stop. I just, on my out lap and my first lap, I pushed quite hard to try to just stay with the big gap. And then I was just managing the tires, everything, because it wasn't really easy to drive now.
A great performance from you. Congratulations.
Thank
we'll have you step to the side. We'll bring Martin in. And Martin, this really was a team effort to get this car ready. You guys were not happy with it at the start of the weekend.
Yeah.
So to go from that to this, an overall win, what does it say about this group?
It's amazing, like you mentioned. It's a teamwork. We all, we were just going over and over. What are we gonna do? We knew that the circumstances were different than March, so we changed a lot of things, and actually it turned out good for us. So we're very happy for this overall win.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Looked like you were giving it everything you could. That Ferrari looked awfully fast, though. What did it look like from your perspective?
They definitely found some speed coming back from early in the year. I think there's been a little bit of BOP changes over the course of the year, so that definitely helped a little bit. But, I mean, they still didn't put a wheel wrong. They drove a heck of a race. Me and Trent, we're worn out. We're doing qualifying laps for 45 minutes, but our number 93 Races Edge Acura GT3 Evo was still underneath us the whole time. So still go back to the drawing board. Hopefully we can put some good setup changes on it for tomorrow and go get them.
All right, sounds good. We'll talk to you tomorrow, I'm sure. Trent will bring you up here as well. Shelby was talking about running qualifying laps for an entire stint. Around a place like COTA, is that fun, exhausting, some combination of the two?
It's a little bit of everything, Ryan. I mean, COTA's a really physical track to begin with, especially Sector 1, and especially in this NSX GT3 Evo, we make a good amount of downforce, so we're hucking it into the S's pretty hard, and as much fun as it is, it'll definitely wear on you a little bit after 45 minutes to an hour. But either way, big thanks to the Race Edge Motorsports guys. We had some difficulty in practice 1. We weren't able to get any laps, so I'm really proud of the turnaround that these guys were able to do in such a short period of time, getting this car ready to go and in a place where we're competitive. We've progressed every session so far, and I think we'll continue doing that for tomorrow as well.
Yeah, quickly, do you have anything left in the bag of tricks to throw at them tomorrow?
There's always something left. There's always something left if you dig deep enough. So, we got a great group of guys around us. Shelby, obviously, we'll all put our heads together and see what we can come up with for race 2 tomorrow.
We're curious to see what it looks like. Thanks, Trent.
Thanks, Ryan.
So again, welcome back to Circuit of the Americas. Had to step away for just one moment. We're wrapping things up here this afternoon from Circuit of the Americas. If you'd like to join us again tomorrow, you certainly can. 1 o'clock Central Time will be when the broadcast will start tomorrow afternoon. Again, if you have not entered the CrowdStrike Racing Coloring Book Contest, you can download a copy of the coloring book for yourself at CrowdStrikeRacing.com. Tag your best entries on social media. By the Indianapolis race weekend, October 2nd through 4th, the winner will get a cool CrowdStrike Racing swag bag. And with a look at the beautiful Circuit of the Americas here in Austin, Texas, we'll wrap things up this afternoon, and more to watch on the GT World YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.